Ukraine hit Moscow with just 2 jets, causing $620 million damage in 16 minutes. 4:31 a.m., northern Ukraine. The horizon didn't brighten with dawn, it erupted. Dozens of long-range missiles and strike drones carved burning trails across the sky, tearing through frozen cities and plunging entire regions into darkness. That was the opening blow. But the real story began in the silence that followed. A silence where Ukraine made a choice colder and sharper than any winter wind. Deep underground, a plan took shape. A mission so precise, so improbable, that even Russia's commanders dismissed it as impossible. They didn't know 2 Specter-modified MiGs were already warming their engines, carrying a strike pattern designed to expose the fault lines of Moscow's pride. Before we dive in, what would you do if your entire air defense network collapsed in under 20 minutes? Let's start from the beginning. 4:31 a.m. The moment northern Ukraine stopped breathing. Before sunrise could touch the frost, the horizon erupted in a wall of white fire. 48 caliber missiles and 22 Lancet drones, a combined payload worth more than $220 million, streaked across the border in a single, coordinated wave. Moscow called it a precision strike. But to the 3 million civilians living across Chernihiv, Kharkiv, and Sumy, it felt like the sky itself had cracked apart. Radar screens in Kyiv lit up like a storm front made of red. Alarms rolled through the bases, one after another, a chain of echoing sirens cutting through the dark. "Activate all interceptors," the duty officer said, voice steady but eyes frozen. Within seconds, Patriot and Iris-T launchers ignited the night, firing 42 defensive missiles that arced upward like burning spears. The interception was miraculous, but not perfect. 7 calibers slipped through the shield. In less than 11 minutes, rooftops buckled, entire power blocks collapsed inward, and a regional heating hub worth $74 million was torn apart in a single flash. Temperatures had already fallen below freezing, and now nearly 550,000 residents were left without heat. Emergency crews raced through snow-clogged streets. Firefighters shoveled melting ice with their gloves. A medical team pulled infants from a darkened ward while sparks rained from the ceiling. Across 4 provinces, 14 substations, and more than 350 transformers went offline, plunging whole districts into silence. By 5:11 a.m., satellite images showed 126 fires still burning. This wasn't a message, it was a warning. And Ukraine understood exactly what it meant. 5:23 a.m. The smoke over Kyiv still clung to the sky like a heavy curtain when the order finally came. Deep beneath the capital, inside a reinforced command bunker carved into layers of granite, President Valery Zelenko stood surrounded by a half-circle of generals, analysts, and engineers. Their screens showed nothing but destruction, collapsed heating grids, stalled ambulances, and evacuation lines stretching more than 12 kilometers toward the western highways. Silence held the room until the commander-in-chief spoke 4 words that would tilt the balance of the entire war. "Activate Spiral Protocol 1." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Everyone knew what that meant. A secure line crackled to life, connecting them to a hidden airstrip near Vinnytsia, a facility buried so deep that even satellite sweeps rarely caught its outline. On its polished steel floor rested 2 aircraft MiG-29, Specter variants, modified over 21 months, fitted with carbon mesh stealth panels, subthermal exhaust baffling, and a digital signature so faint it appeared as static on most radar arrays. Their price tag? Just $11.4 million for both less than a third of a single Russian air defense battery they were about to confront. Each jet carried a strike package valued at $52 million, a combination of R-77 interceptors and newly upgraded KR-31 standoff units, optimized for high-interference environments. Engineers whispered final checks. Pilots sealed their visors. A spiral insignia was painted on each wingtip, a symbol of a mission that no one would openly acknowledge. But here's the real question for you. Do you think 2 aircraft, flying alone into one of the heaviest defended airspaces on the planet, can survive what's coming next? Tell me your guess before we move on. Because in Chapter 3, the operation leaves the ground, and the sky above Russia is waiting. 3:54 a.m. Somewhere above the tree line of western Russia, the night split open with a low mechanical growl. The two MiG-29 Spectre variants, call signs Vortex 1 and Vortex 2, crossed the border at Mach 1.8, skimming just 34 meters above frozen terrain. Beneath their wings, more than 2,600 square miles of farmland slept under a sheet of pale fog. Above them, 254 Russian radar stations swept the sky in synchronized arcs and saw nothing. Not yet. At 3:56, Vortex 1 deployed a Leica 120 radar decoy, a compact UAV valued at only $28,000, coded to mimic the electromagnetic signature of a twin-engine fighter. Within 20 seconds, two Pantsir S-2 batteries together worth nearly $30 million locked onto the Phantom. Operators launched a defensive salvo priced at $2.4 million in a single burst. The missiles soared upward, chasing noise instead of truth. The diversion opened a corridor less than 8 seconds wide. Vortex 2 accelerated through it, switching from low visibility mode into strike configuration. Its internal suite, a hybrid of Ukrainian-coded frequency scramblers and Western navigation stacks, pulsed into action. At 3:58, the jet's sensors detected the first Russian electronic warfare unit, a Krasuka 5 array, responsible for nearly 17% of the regional jamming network. It never completed its next sweep. A KR-31P anti-radiation missile tore across the night at Mach 3.6, hitting the jamming vehicle with such thermal intensity that its onboard systems collapsed before impact telemetry could finish transmitting. Within 60 seconds, two more EW nodes across the Bryansk corridor fell offline, erasing almost 22% of Moscow's outer layer detection grid. Radio nets buckled under the overload. Some operators reported clusters of 9 to 11 hostile aircraft. Others claimed the radars were cycling through false positive ghosts. A Tor-M 2 unit east of Safanovo fired 3 interceptors blindly, none coming within 30 meters of their targets. By 4:01 a.m., the sky no longer belonged to Russia. The corridor to Moscow, narrow, frozen, and impossibly dangerous, now lay open. And the most critical phase of the operation had only just begun. 4:04 a.m. 10,000 meters above the frozen capital, the two Spectre MiGs emerged from the clouds like shadows sharpened by steel. Beneath them sprawled Moscow, a city of 12.9 million, protected by a defense network valued at more than $10 billion, a fortress built on the belief that no foreign aircraft could ever breach its sky. That belief was about to shatter. Vortex 1 locked its coordinates first. A coded transmission pulsed through the encrypted line. Spiral pattern. Phase 4. Weapons free. At 4:00 to 6 a.m., 3 R-77X precision missiles peeled away from its fuselage, dropping into a near-vertical dive at Mach 3.3. Their targets? A triad of luxury towers along Kutuzovsky Prospect, home to senior officials and high-ranking defense executives. The impact wave was instant. More than 3,800 windows ruptured across a 5-block radius. Temperature inside the tallest tower surged past 1,000 degrees Celsius, igniting insulation and interior composites in less than 30 seconds. Surveillance feeds across the district flickered, then died. The western grid of Moscow, powering nearly 2.2 million residents, collapsed for 14 minutes. Vortex 2 dove next. At 4:00 to 8, it released a salvo of 6 KR-31A standoff units, each engineered for high-density infrastructure strikes. One missile tore through the south annex of the Philly government complex. Another punctured the thermal chambers of the Krylatskoye power station, igniting fuel stores valued at $130 million. A third detonated above a transport hub, disabling a junction that moved 9% of Moscow's daily logistics flow. For 12 uninterrupted minutes, the capital's defenses remained paralyzed, sensors blind, radars silent, command channels fractured into static. And as the flames climbed into the winter air, the final phase of Operation Spiral Gate moved into position. The point of no return had already passed. 4:14 a.m. The smoke above Moscow widened into a single gray column as the city's emergency grid strained under the overload. What had begun as isolated strikes was now spiraling into a systemic breakdown. Inside the Kremlin's underground command hall, officers stared at blank monitors. Sensor boards that normally displayed 240-plus radar channels now showed fewer than 73 active feeds. Nearly 68% of the outer layer coverage had gone dark. Reports flooded in faster than the network could process them. A rail substation west of Dorogomolovo lost synchronization, cutting power to 33 commuter lines. 2 control towers at Vnukovo and Ostafyevo airports failed to acquire uplink signals for almost 9 minutes, forcing civilian aircraft into holding loops above the snowfall. Across the river districts, emergency lines surged past 5,000 calls, overwhelming dispatch centers that had already lost half their bandwidth. But the most critical impact came from the electronic vacuum left behind. With the Krasuka 5 array destroyed and 2 auxiliary EW hubs offline, Moscow's defensive fire control architecture began to misread its own data. One S-350 battery east of Philly detected multiple inbound threats and initiated auto-sequence mode only to find its targeting relays unable to confirm a single signature. Another unit near Kovrino reported altitude distortions exceeding 400%, making the sky appear crowded with aircraft that did not exist. The capital's surveillance backbone, a network of 77,000 cameras, collapsed entirely when a secondary power vault tripped under stress, silencing whole districts in under 12 seconds. Traffic networks froze. Metro lines stalled inside tunnels. Residential grids flickered between brownouts and brief blackouts. By 4:22 a.m., the city's $10 billion defense shield had been reduced to scattered fragments of isolated sensors and powerless towers, a broken mosaic unable to form a picture. And above that fractured sky, the Spectre jets were already turning for their final vector. The most decisive strike of Operation Spiral Gate was still ahead. 4:26 a.m. The moment when Moscow's skyline disappeared behind layers of drifting smoke. What remained visible looked less like a capital and more like a silhouette carved out by firelight. On the ground, emergency brigades struggled to reconnect junctions that fed nearly 3 million residents, but the circuits continued failing one by one. By now, 21 separate fires burned across 7 administrative districts, each fueled by ruptured transformers and overheated conduit lines. Above the haze, the 2 Spectre jets completed their final spiral, banking south over the frozen river. Their last strike window measured barely 93 seconds, the only interval when all 3 remaining radar chains were simultaneously offline. It was enough. At 4:27 a.m., Vortex 1 released a pair of R-77X Aurora variants, engineered for minimal thermal bloom. The missiles plunged toward the western industrial ring, hitting a cluster of energy vaults that stored more than $180 million in backup load reserves. The shock ripple wasn't explosive but electrical. Voltage spikes cascaded through 4 adjoining grids, shutting down over 900 substations in a rolling blackout. Vortex 2 followed with precision. 4 KR-31S units arced downward at Mach 3.5, striking the southern transport corridor. A logistics hub that moved 12% of Moscow's daily cargo collapsed into silence as automated cranes, thermal sorters, and satellite-guided conveyors all failed under simultaneous overload. Sparks flashed across a mile-long conveyor line, then everything went dark. Within 17 minutes of the first impact, the Kremlin confirmed 23 infrastructure zones critically affected, 11 airports operating under emergency protocols, and communication loss, with 9 military sites ringing the city. By 4:29 a.m., the Spectre jets had already vanished into the cloud line. A mission, costing Ukraine less than $4.8 million, had disabled more than $680 million in Russian assets and exposed the capital's vulnerabilities down to the last cable. Operation Spiral Gate had achieved its objective, but the lesson it delivered would echo much farther than the borders of Moscow. By the time dawn finally pushed through the smoke, Moscow was a city changed. Power lines still buzzed with unstable voltage, emergency sirens drifted between districts, and the skyline flickered with the last embers of 21 fires. In less than half an hour, 2 Spectre jets worth a fraction of a single air defense battery had revealed a truth no fortress wants to face, that walls of steel crumble when struck by imagination, precision, and perfect timing. For Ukraine, Operation Spiralgate was more than retaliation. It was proof that innovation could reach farther than force, and that even the most fortified capitals carry hidden fault lines waiting for the right pressure point. And now, I want to hear your thoughts. Was this the turning point, or simply the opening chapter of a new kind of warfare? Share your view below, and let me know what you think happens next.